All right, fellow babies, thanks for joining us this week on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I hope you're watching on SIFTD.net and hope you remember. If you are, thanks for the support. If you're watching on YouTube, you are seeing it at least a week later. And if you're on YouTube and you don't pay for SIFTD.net, I'm sorry, but I require you to follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, or you're not allowed to watch this stuff anymore. Our first question comes from Twitter from at @TayLobster. Taylobster. Now that Nintendo has released a console with haptic controls and a detachable screen, will it go for VR? You know what Nintendo means in Japanese? 3 years late. That's what it means. So if they're going to do VR, they're going to wait until somebody has wild success at it. There's 80 million of them installed, and then maybe they'll try it, and that'll be 2025. So ask me again in 2023 or so, and I'll answer the question. But no, this is a freaking handheld with detachable controls. That's what this Switch is. So think about the name. It's not really all that complicated. You're switching from handheld to console and back. Cell phone in front of your eyes is one thing, and it's got to be two screens, but that screen's a little too big. Making them smaller, they might as well just do a handheld. No, they're not going to do something that a cell phone already does. I don't see that happening at all. Okay, got a question from SIFTD from Norix Nessie. Hi, Pac. Hi, Noric. Unlike last generation, I am starting to prefer digital games. What is the difference in profit margins between physical and digital? Love your show, by the way. Pay no attention to the haters. You know, pay attention to the haters. You know, haters who hate for the sake of hating aren't worth paying attention to. I'm fine engaging with people who have thoughtful responses, so thank you. There's hardly anybody who's just like outright hateful. And you see a very high correlation of people who are thoughtful and are respectful to people who actually have their name associated with their account. So, you know, when people don't have their name associated, I absolutely pay no attention. There's kind of a Twitter meme that, you know, you just don't mess with eggs. So if somebody doesn't have their picture and their name on there, who cares? They're an egg. You know, eggs are like subhuman. We don't care. So by the way, on Twitter, if you have an egg as an avatar, change it, because you instantly look like an ass. I mean, it's so easy to block an egg. I have trouble blocking a real person. I actually only block about 50 people. And what they have in common is they were really disgustingly disrespectful. So I don't block you if you say, I don't agree with what you said. I could care less about that. But if you say, I'm going to kill you and your family, yeah, I pretty much have to block you, sorry. Okay, so anyway, yeah, digital profit margins. So here's the math. I'll do it in dollars, but it's pretty easy. If a physical copy of a console game is sold, it retails for 60 bucks. The retailer gets 12. So the wholesale price, so Activision sells Call of Duty to Best Buy. Best Buy buys it for $48. The cost of goods, which is the manufacturing fee and the royalty paid to Sony or Microsoft, is 12. So Activision records 48 of revenue and 36 of what they call gross profit. So their sales are for 48, they pay 12 to Sony or Microsoft, they get 36 net. So 36 over 48 is 75% gross profit margin. So you didn't ask gross versus operating versus net, but we'll get there. So 75% gross margin. If the same game is sold as a digital download, it's sold, instead of wholesale for 48 to Best Buy, it's sold wholesale for 48 to Microsoft or Sony. They then become the retailer and they get that $12 profit. But because they're not manufacturing a physical disc and they don't have to ship it and they don't have to deal with it, they just let you order it in a digital copy downloads, they cut the manufacturer royalty from $12 to $6. So Activision books a revenue of 48, same as with Best Buy. They book a cost of goods, cost of sales of 6. So their gross profit dollars are 42. 42 over 48 is 87.5%. So on a very simple level, a full game download has 87.5% gross margin. A full game sale, physical sale, has 75% gross margin. So you asked the question, what is the difference in the profit margins between physical and digital? 12.5%. The reason I stop at gross margin is every other line item of expense to get to operating margin and net margin is the same. So the development cost is the same, the marketing cost is the same, general overhead is the same, right? Taxes are the same. So the difference in profit margin is 12.5 percentage points. So $100 of digital sales are worth $12.50 more than $100 of physical sales, period. And then you pay tax on that, obviously. But I hope that answers your question. Now, as far as other types of digital sales, and you said digital games, so I think you meant the actual full game downloads. If you sell somebody, you know, a bacon wrap for his rifle in Call of Duty, then the profit is essentially 100%. That is a 30% rev share with the console manufacturer, but the publisher records only the net amount. So if you pay, let's just say, $5 for bacon wrap, it's 30% to Microsoft and 70% to Activision. They only book $350. They don't book the $5 of sales. So they book zero cost of sales. They get $350, they record $350, 100% margin. Now they really do have a little cost associated with that because some artist has to design the bacon and some developer has to make the bacon sizzle every time you pull the trigger on the gun. But the cost of goods is very small. I mean, so it's probably 90% margin or something. Another type of digital sale, you could redo the game as Snoop Dogg doing it. And I remember it was a $4 download. I bought that. It was really cool. It was Snoop. I mean, it really was Snoop. And just everything that happened, he just read the same exact words. It was cool. But, they probably paid Snoop $500,000 because Snoop's time is valuable. But I heard they sold 1 million of those at $4. So they probably, they paid Microsoft 30%. So they had 4 million in sales, but they booked 2.8 million and paid Snoop 500,000. They made 2.3. So 2.3 over 2.8, whatever the hell that is. Again, probably 80%. Anyway, that's how you calculate profit margin. I think your question, though, is about full game downloads. The answer is 12.5%. Okay, our next question from SIFTD, from Francis Alex. From an investor's point of view, do you think the video game industry is going to be healthy and a healthy industry to invest in for long term? What could possibly happen to make investors take their money to other industries? Much more complicated question than you probably know. I do think it's going to be healthy and work for the long term, but the truth is every single day investors think about what the best alternative is for their funds. So let's pretend you bought Electronic Arts at 13 back in 2013, and it's 87 now. Well, you made, I can't even do that, six-fold on your money. It's gone up more than six-fold. You made 600%, okay. Do you think that it's going to go from 87 to 500 in the next 4 years? Probably not. So you might look for another return. You might say, oh, Snapchat, or oh, Facebook, or Twitter's going to turn around, or Netflix is going to go to 900, or Amazon's going to go to 10,000. So every day you have to make a judgment on whether you think that whatever you're investing in is better than all your other alternatives. And the truth is people swap in and out of investments all the time. So the answer to the former, is it going to be healthy? Yes. The answer to the second question, what could happen to make investors take their money to other industries? There are other industries that are more promising. I don't know what they are, but they exist. There's always going to be something that's more interesting. And, it could be, imagine if you were an investor in typewriter companies when PCs were first coming out. probably would have been a good idea to invest in PCs then, because who uses a typewriter anymore? And imagine that you were an investor in PCs when prices started coming down. That's a pretty crappy industry to invest in now because it's a commodity. And imagine if you were an Apple investor when the iPhone launched, different company now. So I bought Apple for $17, and I thought I was a genius when I sold it at 83. And then it went to 700 and split 7 for 1. So it's essentially 700 now. And then it went from 100 to, I think it's 139 now. You still own it. Boy, Buffett, that really bailed you out. But yeah, it's the equivalent of 850 or something now, and I sold at 83 and thought I was a genius. You just never know. So, you know, the answer is that you have to assess risk and reward. And if you think that, you know, if you don't want to take risk, then you buy something very stable like a Nike, you know, like a Apple, where the odds of Apple becoming obsolete are pretty low. The odds of Nike shoes becoming toxic are pretty low, but the odds of them going up 500% are pretty low as well. If you want to take more risk, you buy a biotech stock that is the cure for some disease that we need a cure for, you know, cancer. If you buy the guys who figure out the cure for cancer, and I don't know who that is, but if they exist, you're going to make 1,000-fold on your money. I mean, right, so you just don't know. And, you know, it's like investing in the next Snapchat when they start up. I mean, do we get that chance? Some guys do, but those are hard things to do. The way most people make a ton of money in the market is they have a portfolio and they invest in a broad range of stocks. And so their winners, even though they might go up tenfold, are only 1% of their portfolio. You know, people who put all their money in that, some get rich and some lose everything. So I don't know how to talk to individual investors about why they should own games. Games is part of a good portfolio. If you want exposure to entertainment, you want exposure to technology, then they're a good investment. Our last question this week from Zero Kaiser. Hi, Mr. Pack. For lots of hardcore gamers, gameplay is everything. But from a business point of view, does the look of the game play a big factor in its success? Look, I think it depends. I mean, I think most people are uncomfortable with shooter games if you actually shoot somebody and it looks like you really killed them. You know, I think it's interesting if it's a mystery game or a survival horror game, but one of the reasons we like zombies is there's very little guilt in killing a zombie. Like they're already dead, and so you don't really feel like you extinguish a life. And I think it's hard when you're actually killing a person. And if you go back to Modern Warfare 2 maybe, No Russian, was that Modern Warfare 2? You had to kill civilians. There was a point where you had to, and by the way, if you chose not to, they killed you. The Russians or whoever killed you. So you had to do it. You couldn't advance in the game without doing it. And that was a controversy. People felt bad about killing other people. And that wasn't that realistic a game. With this generation graphics problem. Other than that, it's awesome. So Elder Scrolls killing dragons, no problem. Like, people are gonna love that, right? Fallout killing mutants, no problem. Like, people love that shit. So I think it really depends on the kind of game. But, you know, Last of Us and Uncharted, I mean, they look great. They look like movies, and when you kill people, you might get like a little blood spot and they fall down, but you know, their heads don't explode. You know, because realistic graphics doesn't work for killing, works for everything else. So like racing, Forza, that looks real. That's massively cool. So yes, I think that more realistic graphics makes people like, if they feel like they're in a movie and they're controlling the movie. So it's interactive entertainment. It's just the next step in controlling everything in the environment. Yes, I think it matters. Thanks for joining us, fellow babies. We'll be back next week on SIFTD.net. If you're watching on SIFTD, thank you for your support. If you're watching on YouTube, you better be following me on Twitter @MichaelPachter, because you're getting this for free, and I expect at a minimum that I get more Twitter followers from my 200 followers on YouTube. Thanks very much for joining us. I'll see you next week.